You know, imagine, it's interesting because there's obviously, and we've talked about a lot, and a lot of people have focused in the past on radicalization and other things that lead to it, you know, poverty, lack of opportunities, a sense of humiliation. This guy wasn't poor. He went to college, had a degree in computers. I mean, it seems like there really are no boundaries anymore for somebody who actually may be attracted to this stuff.
Well, yes, Anderson. I mean, I've written a piece tomorrow for one of the national newspapers here, The Guardian, comparing Islamism to racism. And just like racism can affect anyone, whether they're educated, whether they're not educated, it's an idea that people seek to adopt as an excuse for their own insecurities. And Islamist ideology is the same. Let's not forget this guy not only graduated from the University of Westminster in London, but others who controlled the student union, not just the Islamic Society, but the student union in that university, were affiliated with my own former organization, Hizb ut-Tahrir, which was the first group to popularize the notion of re-establishing a caliphate. This idea of recreating an Islamic state affects, in a disproportionate way, the most highly educated Muslims born and raised in Britain.
What is the appeal, though? I mean, you believe it's what? It's sort of personality traits or personality failings that is leading somebody to this in a case like him?
He probably at one stage tried to work out whether he's British, whether he's Kuwaiti, or whether his Muslim identity supersedes both. And then that identity crisis combined with charismatic recruiters, such as Caliph Abu Bakr Baghdadi, the so-called Caliph, and then thirdly, the ideology of Islamism works to kind of all come together and radicalize vulnerable young Britons and disproportionately Western-born and raised Muslims to this ideology.
Philip, if the U.S. or another country was interested in trying to kill this guy or capture him, whatever, is the fact that he's a British citizen, does that make it more difficult? Does that even play in?
I think theoretically it does. We have an allied country. Can you imagine somebody targeting a U.S. citizen with, for example, a drone strike and not telling us if it's a close ally? This is a pretty clear case. So if you're looking at somebody who's involved in terrorism and who is what we will call in the business an imminent threat, someone who's not only been involved in murder, but is most likely involved in plots today, I don't know how you stand back and say, look, because this is somebody who's a citizen of a close ally, we won't take a shot. This guy is clearly over the bar.
But is it likely he's actually a high level, or it just happens to be the guy they picked to talk on camera because he's got the accent, he's able to speak English, he's able to kind of...
I think this story is misleading. He's a target not because he's an operational commander. You might look on screen and say, he's got to be a player in ISIS. Look how much airtime he gets. I look at this and say, he would not be my top-tier target. The guys who are running the organization, training. That said, in the 15 years of this war, somebody who can have this magnetic appeal across the explosion of social media, you wouldn't have targeted this person 15 years ago. Today, because of that magnetic appeal and the ability to reach out, he's got to be on the list.
Imagine you're concerned about people having sympathy for this guy or trying to kind of almost make excuses for why he was radicalized, because this group, Cage, they lay the blame for his radicalization at the feet of British intelligence agencies.
Yeah, I mean, look, I know the guy Asim from Cage. I went to university with him. These guys are Islamist sympathizers. When I was with Hizb ut-Tahrir, Asim spoke at a rally outside the US Embassy in London alongside me, supporting groups such as Hezbollah, Hamas, and Hizb ut-Tahrir. These guys wholly subscribe to the Islamist ideology, so it's no surprise that they've been spending the day on British media defending Maajid Nawaz. In fact, Asim, who was the spokesman for Cage, basically said that Maajid Nawaz was a beautiful young man as he knew him. And then he actually shed a tear live on air when he was reminiscing over this so-called Jihadi John, and yet didn't shed any tears in this press conference for any of the victims of this beheader of Maajid Nawaz. People like Peter Kassig and others who this man brutally murdered. He showed no remorse for their own deaths, no consideration for their families. And this is a typical kind of what I call the half-truth narrative of playing the victim constantly and blaming foreign policy, blaming torture. Look, you know, I have opposed Guantanamo Bay. I was in a prison cell opposing the invasion of Iraq under George Bush Jr. But that doesn't mean that just because we oppose Guantanamo or the invasion of Iraq, that Islamist theocracy is the solution. This victimhood narrative has to be debunked.
Maajid, great to have you on as well. Philip as well. Thank you.